After Henry's relationship with Anne of Cleves failed, he then moved on to the very young Catherine Howard, who was part of the Howard family. Now, unfortunately, we don't actually know when about she was born, but we do know that it was probably between 1518 and 1524, which doesn't really narrow it down. But she was part of the Howard family, so she has a connection to his second wife, Anne Boleyn. She was the daughter of Edmund, who was the youngest son of Thomas Howard, and her mother was Joyce, daughter of Richard Culpeper, who also will play a part in Catherine's story later on. For most of her life, Catherine unfortunately was always being drawn to older men, whether intentionally or because they themselves were just floating around her. Her first relationship that is somewhat known about is when she was 12 years old, and she formed a relationship with her music teacher, Henry Maxus, who made sexual advances on the young Catherine. Her next relationship was with a gentleman when she was only 14. She started a relationship with a gentleman called Francis Serum. The young Catherine was always described as being quite short, quite graceful. She was very much into dance and music, and it was these features that eventually drew Henry to her. She started going to court roughly around 1539 through her uncle, who was the Duke of Norfolk, and she became one of Anne of Cleves' ladies-in-waiting. Henry VIII started to show an interest in Catherine in June 1540. He then managed to secure an annulment with his wife Anne of Cleves, and then on the 28th of July 1540 he married Catherine Howard. On that same day he executed Thomas Cromwell, who had pushed him to form the alliance with the Cleves in the first place, and unfortunately he got executed for that choice, trying to secure Britain and ultimately losing his head. Catherine was later crowned on the 8th of August. While Queen, Catherine managed to successfully plead for the lives of a load of prisoners in 1541. She managed to sway Henry, and Henry was besotten by her. Seeing her as a beauty, he thought her so graceful, so wonderful, and I guess he in a way thought he was very fortunate to have such a young wife to be on his arm. Unfortunately for Catherine herself though, she was always swayed by the men around her. They were always using her as a pawn to be able to advance themselves. By her being queen, she was able to enhance her family's fortunes and their positions throughout the court. She had started having an affair with Culpeper around the time of Henry turning 50, and it is believed that while she was travelling through the north of England to places like Pontefract, she and Culpeper had a lot of secret meetings together. This information of finding out that his wife had been committing adultery hit Henry seriously very hard. He couldn't believe it, and he was even more shocked when a letter was presented to him with her basically declaring her love to Thomas Culpeper. He still couldn't believe it. Henry fell into a deep depression after finding out that his young wife had been committing adultery. This was a depression that he would never go out of for the rest of his remaining life. Thomas Culpeper was trialed with treason and executed. Catherine was stripped of her queenship on the 14th of November 1541, and eventually she followed her lover Thomas Culpeper to the Tower of London, where on the 10th of February 1542 she was executed by beheading. It is said that the night before her execution she practised over and over, preparing herself for her ultimate end. Catherine Howard was around 18 or 19 years of age when she was executed. She was another one that was part of the Boleyn-Howard family, and she also lost her head, just like his second queen, Anne Boleyn. This young queen didn't have a choice. Throughout all her life, she was taken advantage of by the men around her. This is just proof of what life was like for noble women in the Tudor era.